Alright guys, hey, thanks for joining me today. So, herbicides and cover crops. How do you select a herbicide? There's several things we want to keep in mind. One, we want to keep in mind that we still have a herbicide program that has some good residual, a good pre-program. We don't want to just simply do a Roundup burn down and then plant our crop and then several weeks later or a month and a half later think about doing covers, because you will lose that war. Them enemies are going to be inside your castle, and then they're very hard to fight back. So we want to do a good pre-emerge with a residual. We also want to be thinking, okay, if we're moving into soil health, are we changing our crop rotation? And is this a safe herbicide to be using? Does it have carryover that's going to interfere with my newfound plan of rotations? Same with the cover crop. We don't want to be introducing some hard to control species into our rotation. For me in my climate, that's not a thing. Other parts of the country, annual ryegrass can be a major nuisance. Hairy vetch can be a major nuisance. But for here, no big deal. So we want to, our cash crop is our focal point. Our cover crop can be very successful, even though it doesn't look like what we see online, all these beautiful pictures of cover crops. If that cover crop come fall time behind corn, for me, it's going to be, you know, if the oats really take off, it's going to be just this little wispy oat stand with some brassicas in it, with some radish leaves in it. And to me, that is a very successful cover crop because it put down roots, it pumped carbon into the soil. Any nutrients that it took up are now going to be able to be recyclable and usable for next year. The roots also helped hold our soil in place from wind and water erosion, and it's going to allow better infiltration into our soil, and the whole time it's pumping into our soil, carbon into our soil, it's helping build soil life, it's helping build aggregation, it's helping build soil structure, which makes the field better for us to drive on. So even an ugly looking cover crop is still very successful. I would rather risk damage to a cover crop at this point because of being still a little aggressive with our herbicide program than risk a cash flow because we really pulled back on herbicide and we ended up hurting our cash crop. And a lot of the herbicides that we're using are designed to allow a plant to go one way. So you got this barrier on the soil of our residual, and if a plant tries and comes through it, it gets killed. That's how it works. Not many of them will stop a seed from sitting on top of the soil and rooting down through. That's why I like broadcasting. Well, that's one of the reasons why. The other reason is it's very inexpensive. I don't have to buy or build equipment. I just rent a broadcast spreader. I can fill that sucker up with seed. I can cover a lot of acres very fast. And it works. It works well. The cover crops are doing what I want them to do. They're not always pretty. On the soybean side, we do our normal pre-emerge. I've always had very good luck with light. As I get more aggressive with the amount of perennial grasses that I'm trying to bring into the game, I'll have to keep spiking a little more with like some Select or glyphosate. But we have the pre-emerge, we have the burn down, and then we go by the calendar. If that inlight has a 30-day, somewhere around 20 days, we're going to get out with the second pass. And the second pass might be a simple Thundermaster with a touch of Roundup if we're seeing anything. Otherwise, if the field is still very clean at this point, the Thundermaster on its own works very well. And we put that out there, and then as soon as the soybean canopy starts to open up, that's when we go out with our cover crop mix and get that out into our soybean fields. So then behind the combine, that cover crop mix can hopefully come up and thrive for a few days before fall wipes it out. Usually by the time we're combining beans, we've already had a couple killing frosts. So it's kind of a tough one to do. That's why in the soybeans I like the winter wheat, winter rye type stuff, because that's the ones that are going to get you some bang for the buck. But yeah, so guys, it's that simple. I would do your normal herbicide programs unless you're just loading up with atrazine and some of them harsher chemicals. But do a little research. That's why I recommend, you know, we always say start small, try little areas. By no means are we going organic at this point. We've got a long road to go before we can get to that. But I don't know, I hope this opens up some train of thought for you guys. Let's have some fun discussions and go from there.